Hello, my name is Chris, and today I want to talk about the kind of negative feelings that arise as a result of a setback or a relapse. About the kind of negative self-talk that can come as a result of those feelings and the stories we tell ourselves about just how bad we are. I want to explain why I think it might be at least a little bit healthy and appropriate to feel, after a relapse. How we can take those feelings and use them as a positive and useful tool to prevent a future relapse. But how the rest of the time we have to let that negative self-talk go, otherwise it's just going to make everything worse. Now, if this is the first time that you and I have met, if this is the first of my videos you've ever seen, then I should tell you that most of the time on this channel I talk about quitting smoking. And with that in mind, for most of this video, the examples that I will be using will all be related to quitting smoking. But I also want to say that years since I had my last cigarette, I still use what I'm about to share with you to help me with all kinds of setbacks and challenges and upsets in my life. So even if you're not quitting smoking right now, there might just be something in here that you find relevant. For now, let's stick to smoking. We decide that we're sick and tired of being sick and tired and going to quit smoking. Great, we start off. Best of intentions, everything is going great, and then something happens. And something always happens. I've never yet met anybody who said, "Do you know what, Chris, I started quitting smoking and it was going really well, everything was great, and then for absolutely no reason whatsoever I started smoking again." I'm not saying it doesn't happen, I'm just saying I've never met anyone with that story. The majority of the time I started to quit smoking, everything was going great, and then something happened and I made a decision to respond to that situation with smoking. It is so important for me even now to frame it in those terms. I made a decision to respond to this event by smoking, or by emotional overeating, or by drinking alcohol, or doing drugs, or whatever the case may be. Because when I say I made this decision, that reminds me that I am in control and I can choose how to respond to any given situation. And that means that in the future, I have the power to choose to respond differently. In the past when I was quitting smoking, if something happened and it triggered a relapse, nobody ever, I'm not saying this never happens, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't happen to most of us, nobody ever pinned me down, tied my arms behind my back and forced a cigarette in my mouth. I made the decision to buy the cigarettes, light it up and smoke it. If I'm overeating, nobody orders a pizza for me and forces it down my throat. Nobody forces me to get drunk. Nobody forces me to do anything. I make those decisions. Because I'm in control, I can make a different decision. I can't choose when that red light turns to green. I can't choose if my girlfriend is going to leave me. I can't choose if my boss is going to be a grade A dick. I can't choose many things that are outside of my control, but I can choose how to respond to them. And again, that means that I am in control. I can choose to respond differently. As long as I am saying, "Look what you made me do," then I am giving other people and situations and circumstances a power to control my behaviour that they have no right to and don't deserve. So I made that decision and I own it. It wasn't the most helpful decision, but I made it. Because I know that I made this decision, I can make a different one next time. To me, that is a good thing. But it's also a bad thing because then I go, well, I made a decision that really wasn't very helpful. But I never use the word not very helpful. I go, I made a decision that was stupid. I made a decision that was bad. Because it was bad, I'm weak, I'm stupid, this is terrible, I'm terrible, oh my goodness. This is the kind of stuff that'll go on. So we make this decision that proves to be unhelpful. Or in our negative self-talk mind, this decision that is stupid, bad, weak, wrong, whatever. And I think most people's initial reaction to that would be to say, it's okay, don't feel bad. That is obviously, it's a very kind, loving and compassionate thing to say, but I'm not sure in and of itself it's very effective. I can't think of a time anyone's ever said to me, it's okay Chris, don't feel bad, that I've ever gone, you're right, I never considered not feeling bad as an option, so I'll just stop immediately. I don't think it's that effective. Besides, I think there is actually something healthy about a negative response to a relapse. I think if I picked up a cigarette now, I would feel awful because I want to be healthy and happy and enjoy my freedom, and smoking runs counter to that. So I'd be like, oh my goodness, I've done this thing that is counter to what I want. I've done this thing that is harmful to me. These days I have a healthy love and respect for myself, and yet I've poisoned myself. So yeah, I'm disheartened and disappointed, and that is appropriate. It shows that I care. A couple of months ago, I was out in town and I lost my wallet. And for at least 5 minutes after I lost my wallet, I had this feeling of, or this thought process of, oh my goodness, this is terrible, everything is awful. Even though I didn't decide to lose my wallet, I was still responsible for looking after that wallet. Because I've lost it, God, that means that Chris is stupid and dumb and can't be trusted, and oh, whew. And I think to a certain extent, there's something kind of healthy and appropriate to that. I think most people, if they lost their wallet, would feel bad about it. Right? Like if I lost my wallet and went, lost my wallet, who gives a shit? Well, you should give a shit because you know, bank cards are in there and people could take all your money and then you'd be poor, and not poor, but you know what I mean. Right? It's like I think it's an appropriate response. But I remember very clearly getting into this cycle of, oh my God, this is terrible. And then stopping my thought process and going, okay, that's an appropriate amount of time to feel bad about this situation, but no more. Because feeling bad about this situation ain't gonna change it. Right? I could have stood in town all day ruminating over how terrible it was. It would not make my wallet magically appear out of the ether. Something happens and we smoke. There are no amount of cigarettes in the world that are going to make that thing unhappen. There are no amount of cigarettes in the world that are going to change a red light to green, or make someone who's just dumped you get back with you, or you know, whatever the case may be. So I had to stop and go, okay, this is a healthy reaction. It shows that I care, but that's it now. That's an appropriate amount of time to feel bad. It's not going to help me. So now I need to focus on what I can do instead. And you know, I figured out a way home. You know, got my cards all sorted out. All is good. There is another way that we can use these negative things as a positive, and that is to bank them, to use them store the memory of how bad it feels and just pull it out again if we're ever tempted to respond to another situation with a cigarette. Obviously, it would be wonderful if we were just positive all the time and we never had any bad feelings. That would be great. It would be great if we felt bad and someone just said to us, don't feel bad, and then we instantly stopped feeling bad. But I don't think it quite works like that. These negative feelings happen whether we want them to or not sometimes, and it is just up to us to choose how to deal with them, because we are in control, we get to make the decisions. So we can decide, okay, I know how bad I feel now, and I'm going to really bank this and store it. I know how bad I feel, I know how awful I spoke to myself about the situation. I'm going to memorize this and then put it away. And then the next time, if I'm ever again thinking about responding to a situation with a cigarette, before I make that decision, I can say to myself, well, I could smoke, but the last time I responded to a situation with a cigarette, I felt awful. So my options are respond to this situation in a different way that actually might make the situation better somehow, or have a cigarette, which won't change a thing because the situation is not going to magically unhappen as a result of this cigarette. And not only will it not change anything, but it will make me feel 10 times worse than I already do, because that's how I felt last time. Think about that, and then if you still want to have a cigarette after that, then there's nothing anyone can do to stop you. To this day, I still vividly remember my last cigarette, which is, if you've been watching my videos for a long time, you may recall I was in my kitchen, doubled over, coughing so much that I threw up. I vividly remember that, and I'm glad that I do, because if something ever happens and I'm ever tempted to smoke ever again, I can go back to that memory and go, well, I could smoke, but I'll end up doubled over, choking and throwing up, and it was awful, and I don't want that, so no thank you, I'll do something else. I can have that memory and use it as a useful tool without it overwhelming me, without it being a burden that I have to carry. So I see a therapist every couple of weeks. Not once have I ever had to go to her and say, I'm just really struggling with this one time I had this cigarette and how bad it was. You know, it was something that I can pull out when necessary, but it doesn't plague me and haunt me for the rest of my days. You know, I think about it as like eating a food that we really don't like. So for me, it's fish. I have a really weird reaction when I eat fish. I start to gag, I start to want to throw up. Some kinds of fish make me like so that I can't breathe properly. It's just the most awful thing. So then if anyone ever presents me with a plate of fish and it looks delicious, I can go, well, I could decide to eat this fish, but if I do, I'm going to be gagging and lose my breath and all these terrible things are happening, so I just don't eat the fish. But again, I don't go around spending my whole life thinking about how awful it is that I can't eat fish or how awful that experience was. It's just a memory that I can pull out and then put back until it's needed, like a tool, like a hammer. Again, you know, somewhere in this building there is a hammer that I use that is useful for things. It helps me put the pins in the wall to hang this thing up. But I don't carry the hammer around with me all the time because it is heavy and gets in the way. Just like carrying around negative feelings and self-talk is just going to weigh me down and get in my way and get in the way of me doing what I want to do. Because if I'm spending all of my time telling myself how terrible things are and how terrible I am, then I'm going to make myself feel worse. And if I'm already feeling worse, then what's the point? I might as well smoke anyway. So put it in the drawer, pull it out when I use it, when I need it. And of course that's easier said than done. I think everything that I've ever said on this channel is easier said than done. But it can be done. And I think for me, one of the most beautiful things about recognizing that most things in life are just one decision at a time is that it gets easier to forgive ourselves, because all that we did, literally the only thing that we did, was make an unhelpful decision. And that's okay. All of us do that because we suffer from this weird condition called being human. And one of the side effects of being human is that sometimes we don't make perfect decisions. I don't know of any single person on this planet Earth who has 100% track record of making great decisions, who can say, do you know what, every decision I've ever made since the day I was born worked out perfectly. If that person exists, they're either a liar or they should be stood in front of this camera and not me, right? I think that's all it comes down to. Just, I can forgive myself for making an unhelpful decision, and because I have now learned that that was an unhelpful decision, I can make a more helpful decision next time. I don't need to carry around this burden anymore. I can let it go, like I'm a Disney princess, and just let it go. Whew. I hope that's made sense. I hope it's given you something to think about. I hope it's just distracted you from cigarettes for 15-20 minutes. If nothing else. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I appreciate all of your support and your kind words. As always, let me know in the comments how you're doing on your smoke journey, on your quit smoking journey. I always do love to hear from you. Quick sales pitch. My book is somewhere. My book is called Quit Smoking and Be Happy. If you found this or any of my other videos helpful, you'll find this book hopefully just as helpful. And of course, for more support, please do consider joining our community, Finding Freedom. We have this wonderful little Facebook group, it's not so little anymore actually, of people, wonderful, amazing people from all over the world at all stages of their quit journey, banding together to support one another. I'm so proud of that group. It is facebook.com/groups/findingfreedom1. Thank you so much for watching again. I will see you next week. Goodbye.